What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Bronx Attorney Broadcast. Today, I spoke with Nick Patrick, one of my very good friends from college. He's one of the owners of the law firm of Wendy, Hudson, and Nick Patrick. They're attorneys in North Carolina. Nick practices both criminal defense and family law. I think we had a really fun conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. How's it going, Nick? Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
It's going pretty well, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
So why don't we just get started with you telling us a little bit about your background, where you went to school, where you grew up, stuff like that.
Yeah, so originally I'm from Manahawkin, New Jersey. It's a small town in South Jersey by the beach. From there, went to York College of Pennsylvania. That's where you and I met. Mm-hmm. Had some good times there with a criminal justice major. From there, ended up taking a year off after school, just kind of trying to figure out what I was doing. I mean, initially the plan was to be a law enforcement officer.
Right.
That didn't shake out for a few different reasons, and I guess kind of for the best, actually, given where I'm at right now. But yeah, after taking that year off, I did some odd jobs, kind of went back to my high school job and my college summer job of, being a line cook at a restaurant. I worked at Dick's for a little bit during that period of time. Yeah. That was awesome. No, I did not really enjoy that job. Working retail was not for me. And landscaped a little bit that summer. And I think I was at one of the job sites eating lunch when I found out that I had got accepted into law school. And that summer of 2015, ended up down here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Started law school that August, I guess it was.
And it was only one law school you applied to, is that right?
No, I only applied to two. I applied to Florida Coastal in Jacksonville and Elon. Well, those are the two I got accepted to. I think I actually applied to like 4 or 5 schools. The reason for that was my LSAT score was not good.
Right.
The first time I took it really discouraged me. So that's why I ended up taking that year off, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I was talked into taking it again by my uncle. So I buckled down, took a prep course, got 1 point better on my LSAT after the prep course.
Okay.
But hey, that was enough. That was enough to get me into Elon.
Get you over the finish line. Yeah.
Yeah. So, my grades were pretty good in college too. So I think that helped more than anything, honestly. Right. Didn't want me based solely on my own.
How did you make that decision to go from New Jersey down to North Carolina to go to Elon?
I don't know. I kind of had it in my mind that I always wanted to end up in North Carolina. Don't really know why. Vacationed down there once as a kid, or down here as a kid.
And that's
thought it was great. Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of from then, I just had like this love for North Carolina, and so when I saw that there was a law school there, I decided to apply just to put some feelers. I had no idea where Greensboro was, and had no idea what the middle of the state was like. But it ended up working out, and I love it. I mean, this Greensboro is awesome. It's an amazing city. It's like a smaller city. It's got a really good community feel to it. And I mean, you can driving just around Greensboro. I mean, you get city, you get farms, you get just normal suburbs. So it's a nice mix and a good mix of people.
Okay. And so what are you doing now?
So now I'm a practicing attorney, passed the bar in 2018. So I'm a practicing attorney, right out of law school, jumped in with both feet and opened up a firm with a classmate of mine. Was Wendy Smith when I met her, not Wendy Hudson now. So her and I met in law school initially. They broke us up into small groups of like 20, 25 students called cohorts. So her and I were in the same cohort. So for the whole first year, we had, all of our core classes together. It wasn't until the second year that everyone was kind of able to branch out and you started mixing it up. But Wendy went back to school. Some people would consider her like a non-traditional student.
Right.
Went back a little later in life. She'd already had a very successful nursing career. She was going through some, like a nasty custody, family law, divorce dispute with her husband, and that triggered her to go to law school. But, she approached me the second year and said, I've kind of had my eye on you. I've been looking for classmates because I know that I'm not at this stage of my life going to have a boss. So I'm going to open up my own firm. And something you'd like to take on with me? And I said, yeah, absolutely. That sounds terrifying. Let's do it.
And that was in your second year that you started planning it?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Was there ever a thought that you were like prior to when she brought this up? Were you like, oh, I'll get a job at a small firm, medium firm, large firm? What was your thought process like before that?
Before that, I didn't really think about it that much. At that point, my goal was kind of just to make it through the first year of law school.
Yeah.
That
Make it to Friday.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Make it to the end of the day, make it to
Yeah.
the end of this sentence in this case I'm reading.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really thought about it. I guess in the back of my mind, I always, figured I wanted to work in a small to medium sized firm, I guess. Just had heard like horror stories about big law and it just kind of being like a meat grinder. So I kind of had envisioned a small to medium sized firm. So, that I never envisioned when I, walked in day one that I was going to walk out starting my own firm with a classmate. So that was an interesting twist.
And then, so when Wendy approaches you in your second year, your 2L year, were you like all in after that, or were you still considering other options, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I told she said, you don't have to give me an answer right now. I said, that sounds good. Let me think about it. But we still had 2 more years. Well, a year and a half. It was a 2.5 year program of school left. Let's just see where we end up. But tentatively, that was the plan. I had considered what if things change? And I figured, I'd just do what everyone else is going to do and just take the bar and start applying places. But as we got into the back half of the second year and the third year, it became way more concrete. Her and I actually took a law firm. It's called Law Firm Management over the winter break one year.
Really?
Yeah, that was really neat. So it was run by a local attorney who owns a small firm. It's like a bankruptcy firm mainly. And the course was basically, just what it's like to run a small firm, kind of some things he picked up along the way. The final, was creating a business plan. So we actually ended up using that business plan as a part of business plan. And it was funny because I found that business plan in like a box of my old law school stuff, like in the fall of last year.
Did it hurt to read it?
Oh, we read through it. Yeah, we read through it. No, actually, I gave a copy to Wendy when I found it, and we had a good laugh over it. And looking through it, like we were actually really close on all.
Really? Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, did a pretty good job. So,
yeah. I mean, my thoughts from 3 years ago are like completely terrible compared to now. So that's good that you guys already knew what you wanted that long ago and that early.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I think that definitely helped, like having a plan. It's not something we slapped together, as we were prepping for the bar or right after the bar exam. So we actually had we had a pretty good plan going into it. And it all kind of worked out. And I'll tell you this because I know Wendy would tell you if she was here. She's an open book. But I mean, I passed the bar on my first go, which we took it in the February one was the one we all took initially. Wendy had to take it a second time. She missed it by like 3 points.
Oof.
So we actually launched the firm in June of 2018, but it was just in my name because I was the only practicing attorney.
Right.
She did end up passing the bar the second time, so she was licensed and ready to practice. I think it was like the fall, maybe like November of that year. So for the first almost 6 months, I was just in there by myself, kind of figuring it out. Still kind of figuring it out.
What was that like was that like a gut drop moment where you were like, oh my God, there was supposed to be 2 of us and now there's just 1? How did you deal with that? Yeah,
kind of. Cause it was, Wendy had not just a successful career. She actually launched a really successful business in her previous career, and it did very well. So she had the capital to float us during that period of time.
Okay.
So yeah, I remember, we had the office all furnished, we got all the furniture from different places. We bought a little bit, but mainly people helped us out, gave us stuff they weren't using. And I ended up getting on all of the appointed lists in a county, Randolph County, the county that office was in.
So explain what that is.
So
the appointed list.
Yeah. So if you think, for criminal law, at least, a lot of counties have public defender's office. I think most people are familiar with those, public defender's office. In North Carolina, not every county has one. So what they do is there's a list of private attorneys in the county who agree to get paid, this state rate. It's obviously a lot less than what you would bill. And people who would qualify for public defenders get somebody appointed to them from that list. And there's a criminal list. They have, contempt list. Anytime your liberty's at stake, basically.
Okay.
Whether it's going to jail or losing your kids or something like that, you can apply for court-appointed counsel. So I got on all those lists, not knowing what I was doing. So that covers criminal, civil contempt, child support contempt, um, parent representation in cases where, like in New Jersey, I think it was called DIFUS. Down here, it's just called the Department of Social Services. If, the state removes children from parents. Um, and of course, criminal has both district and superior, so felonies and misdemeanors.
Okay.
So I just got on all those lists just to try to get my feet wet. And I remember I got my first appointment, like stack of appointments. I picked them up at the courthouse in my mailbox there. And I just remember going back to the office and sitting down, and I was like, all right, I got some cases. And I just said, well, now what? I had no idea what to do. So I just kind of felt it out and got it rolling. And that was a terrifying, the whole first year, honestly, was terrifying.
Mm-hmm. So what was your first time ever going to court like?
I remember driving. It's like a 30-minute drive from my house. I just remember driving in my first day of criminal court. I had like 4 or 5 cases on, little misdemeanor stuff. And I had no idea what to do. I walked in, I didn't know anybody except, the 2 attorneys I had met and some of the bailiffs, the 2 attorneys who got me on the list and got me familiar, but I just didn't know what to do. So I just remember I had just like my files, and I sat down across from one of the district attorneys, and I was like, so, this person's charged with this. What are you willing to do? And thankfully, and this is across the board, everybody in that county, the court staff, the judges, the bailiffs, the local bar, just the other attorneys there, even the district attorneys who are my adversaries, and in that forum, everybody was super willing to help and super receptive. I know for the first 2 years, I just bothered people with questions all the time. But yeah, the district attorney who was there that day, Reggie Williams was his name, and I still talk to him. He's in a different county now, but he was awesome. I mean, he really helped me out. He said, kind of, this is what our policies are with the district attorney's office on these kind of cases, and just tell me a little bit about your person. It kind of walked me through my own job. Okay. And so that was day one. That was really something.
Right. So when you start the business, what were some of the initial challenges that you maybe didn't foresee happening? And what did you do to overcome them?
I mean, initially small stuff, just like office management type wise. I mean, literally everything. I mean, just trying to, because we didn't, we had never run Wendy had run a business, but it was in the medical field. So we didn't know how to organize files, what was the best way to just run like your normal office systems you have in place. Who's going to answer phones, because we didn't have a secretary at that time. So what do we do about that? And just really trying to plan out your day with going to court. Also, I think one of the biggest challenges in that first year, especially as you start getting like private clients coming in to pay you, to hire you, managing expectations. That was a big one. I mean, we both learned the hard way, because you could, someone comes in for a consultation, and you have to sell yourself to them, because there's how many other attorneys they could go to. So I think everyone's instinct would be to just kind of tell people what they want to hear, and without a ton of experience or any experience under our belt, like, you really don't know realistically how this case is going to shake out with this certain fact pattern.
Right.
I didn't have the benefit then of being able to say, most judges in this county are going to see this, this issue this way, or they're more inclined to do this or that. So you kind of just tell, oh yeah, I think we can probably get that done. And man, telling people what they want to hear is that's a no-go. Don't do that. Right. You got to be just honest about the situation, and you got to be able to break bad news. So that was one of the biggest learning curves we had.
So like making the sale while also not over-promising.
Absolutely. It's a fine line to walk. Yeah.
And so, were there any pleasant surprises along the line while you were opening up and getting going?
Yeah, I think kind of goes back to what I was saying, just how friendly everyone around here. And I mean, not just in the county that I was on the appointed list on, because I was starting to get familiar with all those people, but even when I would travel to other counties and, the opposing attorneys on the other side, everybody was really good to work with. And I didn't feel like anybody took advantage of the fact that I was a brand new attorney. Everybody really played fair. And
in terms of like your adversaries?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they would, they would help out. And I mean, even after because I didn't know any better, I'd ask them, how do you think I did on this case now that the case is over? And everyone was willing to give me feedback and like honest feedback. So that was one of the biggest surprises because I just assumed, because I didn't know. I mean, you go in there against somebody and they're just going to do everything to win and do what's best for their client. But everybody was extremely willing to help. And, like I said, just played fair, didn't hit below the belt and take advantage of the fact that we were new.
So, and what areas of law do you practice in?
So I would say the bulk of my practice is probably criminal defense, domestic work. So, divorces, dividing up marital assets after a divorce, child custody. That's pretty much the biggest bulk of my private practice. But all the other stuff on the appointed list, parent representation, as I mentioned before, would probably be second or third on that list as far as what most of my time is focused on. But yeah, traffic tickets, criminal defense, domestic work. We did a little bit of general civil stuff early on, did a couple small claims cases. So we were kind of a general practice, but going into, this was year 4, we've kind of narrowed it down. Wendy basically just sticks with domestic work and I stick to my appointed cases and some domestic work.
So how is it apportioned now between the appointed stuff and the private clients?
Like a percentage?
Yeah. Like, is it 50-50 or something else?
No, I'd probably say my appointed work for, like I said, for Wendy, she's 100% private. She doesn't do any appointed work.
Okay.
For me, I would probably say it's 80-20 or maybe closer to 90-10 just at this specific point in time. I wrapped a lot of cases up here in the last couple of months, private cases.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, right
so it
now,
fluctuates depending on the month and what cases you settle or take to trial.
Oh yeah. And I would say, I mean, we've kind of realized there's like an ebb and flow to this, right? So, or a pattern at the very least. Things really kind of slow down towards the back half of the year. The beginning of the year is a little bit slow, and then right around tax time, boom, there's a flood for everybody. So from like,
why do you think that is?
Tax money, man, works. But lawyers are expensive. They're expensive to hire.
Oh, like people are getting their tax returns and being like, I got to clear up that thing that I got pending.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. That's more. You see it more almost with like domestic work, but yeah, it really is just like as people get money, they have, more means to hire attorneys. So there's, it kind of booms a little bit from, I would say, March to May, and then it kind of starts to tail off a little bit. And then towards the end of the year, things really slow down. Now the criminal work, the appointed work, that never slows down because that's just, it keeps going.
Right.
If they have first appearances, people are getting appointed. So
do you approach a criminal defendant differently than you would approach somebody who comes to you with some sort of domestic dispute?
Yes and no. I mean, everything's kind of the same, right? Like somebody comes in with an issue or you get appointed and, the first thing you do is, you listen to your client's side of the story. Then if you maybe reach out to opposing counsel, or you reach out to the officer or the district attorney and you get their side of the story. And you just kind of evaluate the case, the facts, the evidence from there. So it's all kind of the same. I think the big difference is it's probably mainly just the way you talk to people. Like with my appointed clients, I can kind of talk a little more freely and kind of just like we're having a conversation now. I would say for my private clients, maybe I'm a little more polished in those meetings. And that's just something I found. I mean, my appointed clients, my criminal clients, they're just very to the point and just it's all out there.
Tell me it is how it is,
Yeah, they appreciate someone who's kind of just going to sit down and just kind of chop it up with them. And I mean, that's what I've found. So that's kind of how I approach it.
So have you done many trials or you settle everything or plea everything before trial?
That depends on the case. So I've done, so district court here in North Carolina is, you don't get a jury trial in district court, whether, for criminal stuff, at least.
Okay.
I guess you could ask for a jury trial in a district civil matter. That's very rare. So, a district court trial is just a bench trial, just you and the DA and the judge, and the judge is the finder of fact as well as, the judge. But I've done several of those in district court. I've done at this point, I've done 3 jury trials in Superior.
Oh, really?
So it was 2 DWIs and 1 that was a possession of heroin, possession of marijuana paraphernalia, and possession of drug paraphernalia.
How do you approach trials differently if it's a bench trial versus if it's a jury trial?
That's actually a really good question. So, I mean, you got to think about who's the finder of fact, right? So,
Mm,
when you have a bench trial, I mean, the judge is supposed to sit kind of without the knowledge they have of the law and just be the finder of fact. This is
right.
what I find to be true. This is what I, find to be false. And realistically, that's not how it's going to go.
Yeah.
The judges, they've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to, pull the wool over their eyes.
Separate that part of your brain out from.
Right. So it's kind of just a difference of knowing who your audience is. So I mean, with a jury, it's just an audience of 12 people, 12 folks from the county, and they're not trained lawyers. They don't really have any legal knowledge, and so I find it to be almost easier to create that doubt, draw that reasonable doubt
With a jury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, you're going to get a judge who I think probably if I tried my second DWI trial in front of just a judge, and I got a not guilty on it in front of a jury, I think it may have gone differently if it was just a judge, because they would have been able to see through kind of what happened here. A jury, on the other hand, I mean, you can sell things a little differently to them.
Do you think a judge is more doubtful of your case as the defendant?
I think they go into everything open-minded, but they, for lack of a better, they can see through the BS a little better.
Okay.
than a jury, because what does the judge have all day? A bunch of attorneys up in front of him, giving them the old song and dance.
Right.
And, they kind of know a little more what's up.
What's the best result that you've gotten at trial so far?
My two not guilties. Just
two not guilties.
Not guilties on my DWIs. Yeah. One of them I thought for sure was going to be a not guilty going into it. The second one, I was a little more on the fence. I really could have saw it going either way. But it was just the first one was just a matter of the officers just didn't do enough to collect evidence. The second one, they tried to, but it was a refusal case. But there was another avenue for them to get the evidence that they needed to prove their case. And my whole point in that trial was he didn't do it.
Right.
But I wasn't 100% sure a jury was going to buy that argument. I mean, there was pretty good evidence, but at the end of the day, they didn't have that. They didn't have that BAC. Didn't have it.
Right. So what's it like to get your first, not guilty verdict? Were you like freaking out? Did you like?
Yeah, I was on
pump in the courtroom.
Yeah, when I walked out, I was on cloud nine when I walked out of that courtroom, and a lot of it too was because it was one of the ones that you should win. That's what you play for. I mean, so many of these appointed cases, these criminal cases, they're bad facts. You can't. It's really hard to win if you take it to trial, and that's why there's a lot of pleas. But this is one that should have been a not guilty, and so there was a lot of pressure to get, in my mind, the right result. And for somebody with no criminal record, and she was elated at the not guilty, because it's a serious thing. You lose your license for a year, it's on your record. The fines are, that's a lot of money to try to pay. And then, you're on probation. So there's still that chance, if you flub up down the road, you could still end up in jail. So that felt great. I mean, that first not guilty in a jury trial was probably, I would say at this point, the highlight of my career.
And so what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of helping these people who need help, either defending a criminal claim or something in the family court arena?
I think for my criminal clients, it's, when you can help somebody out that just really needs help. And that's what so many of my clients are. I mean, people is, they're indigent and they're a defendant and they've got a criminal record. Like, this person is just, a terrible person and they don't need to be out on the street. But, so many of these people, they just have, mental health issues or substance abuse issues, and, they're not financially well off, and they need help. So whenever you can actually get somebody help, who needs it and who's willing to accept it, that's probably the best part for me. On the civil side, I would say with custody cases is it's a lot of butting heads, right? And the kids are caught in the middle. So resolving things without going to trial in a custody case, to me, is, where you can get two people to see eye to eye, at least for a little bit, and get them to focus on what's important, which is their child or children. That's a big part of it for me too. And then, in those nasty custody cases where you have to go to trial, you get the right, in your mind, what's the right result? Getting your client more time with the child. But if the other home is unsafe or something like that, getting that child out of that home.
Got it.
Or getting the other parent to recognize, their faults and their issues they have. That's a big part of it too. Making an impact on someone or a child's life. Yeah.
This episode of the Bronx Attorney Broadcast was brought to you by me, Will Ferrero. I'm an attorney in prior law right here in the Bronx, and we primarily practice in personal injury. However, we do also do a variety of areas of practice. So I can help you with just about any sort of legal issue that you might have. I'm admitted to practice both in New York and New Jersey. And if it's not something that I can personally help you with, I can connect you with someone in my network of attorneys who is best equipped to help you with your legal issue. You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Bronx Attorney. You can send me an email, Ferrero@Prior Law, or call me at the office, 718-829-0222. And now back to the show. So for your private clients, where do you find that business?
A lot of it, honestly, is word of mouth. We practice in mainly Guilford County, Davidson County, Randolph County, and Forsyth County, which kind of they all connect in a big square. We're in the middle of the state, so it's a little more rural. It's very close knit. It also helps that Wendy was born and raised and went to school in the area we practice in, so she knows so many people. So a lot of it's really been word of mouth. And that seems to be largely, unless you have a traffic practice where you just need to bring in high volume because you're only charging $75, $100 a ticket. Word of mouth works just fine. You get a little bit of a reputation and people find their way in. They know, this is not a super saturated market where there's thousands and thousands and thousands of attorneys. I would say the Randolph County bar consists of 20, 25 attorneys.
Really?
Davidson County is kind of the same. Yeah, there's not a lot, and not everyone's doing the same stuff.
Is that in your practice area or like total? Like
total.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not. It's not a huge number of people and firms. So it's word of mouth works fine. That's actually been kind of one of the challenges too, at least cracking into the market in Asheboro in Randolph County. Because right now it's comprised of there's several attorneys who have been practicing there for 25 plus years. So the people who aren't getting appointed attorneys who want to and have the means to pay for an attorney kind of already have their attorneys picked out who they or their family's been using.
So it's hard to kind of break into that market when these other attorneys have been there for so long.
Yeah, it has been, but it's gotten better with time. Like I said, as you kind of get a reputation, people do find their way to the door. And we don't need a huge volume of cases. There's just two of us in the office. So, I think right now Wendy's private caseload she's got a lot, almost more than she can handle. So it's a fine line between needing enough business, getting enough business, but not getting too much that you start, kind of screwing up. So I would say that's a big misconception is people think you just need people coming in the door constantly, but when there's only two of you in the office, you can't handle that. So you have
employees now?
We do, yeah. We have our paralegal Renee. She's been with us since we opened. She's been great. She worked for an attorney who retired. He just pretty much had a criminal practice, so she jumped in with us. So she had to learn domestic work. So we all kind of learned together. And then we recently, I'd say probably in the last 6 months. Now she started in February. We picked up a secretary. So our paralegal she mainly just works for Wendy. She just because Wendy's just doing all this civil domestic work. So it's a lot of paperwork, filings, discovery, just documents to be sifted through and organized. Our secretary more just kind of handles my administrative stuff, and because I don't have such a big private load, I can kind of handle my appointed stuff on my own because there's far less filings and paperwork and everything like that. So
it's like less administrative work and more just like lawyer work to do.
Yeah, for the most part, on the appointed cases, yeah, I would say that the administrative, sending out letters of court dates, just making sure people know when their court dates are, putting my schedule together, pulling files, copies, getting stuff mailed out, just not just your normal administrative stuff.
Hmm.
And Renee needs to work with Wendy, drafting motions and drafting
Gotcha.
orders and complaints and meeting with clients.
So where did you find your employees? Was it like word of mouth you found in these people, or you went online and listed it?
Yeah, I think I forget. Wendy had some tenuous connection to Renee, and that's how Renee found her way to us. Our secretary is actually one of Wendy's daughters, so that's kind of how she ended up there. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that's kind of how we found them. But it's been great. It's been great. I mean, they're awesome, and Renee too. She's got such a great sense of humor, and she's very bubbly, so she keeps the office nice and light.
Yeah, it's important to have a good workplace culture.
Oh, you have to. Yeah, you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. I mean, this stuff's stressful enough. You don't need you don't need it to be all gloom and doom in the office.
Right. Your coworkers also stressing you out.
Oh yeah, don't need that. None of that.
So, why should people hire you guys rather than these staples that have been in the community for 25 years? What sets you guys apart?
I think the main thing, and this is kind of what Wendy and I discussed when we started this, was we wanted to make people feel like we gave a crap, So we wanted to try to, be a firm that, you had good communication with us and you could come in and meet with us and you'd feel comfortable and, you'd get our story too. So you'd get to kind of know us a little, on the personal side, not just the business side of things and handling your case. So I mean, I can't say that these other firms aren't doing that also, but that's just something we've tried to stress, just making people feel comfortable and like they're heard and that they can really come to us and talk to us. And, I always tell people, don't hesitate to reach out, not shying away from client contact. So I think that's something we've done well. And I think that's, especially with domestic work, I think that's what a lot of these clients want. They want someone to actually
listen to them.
Yeah, exactly. Not just, oh, it's another case and I only talk to the paralegal. Like we didn't want to run a firm like that.
Yeah, I've had clients that have had that story before. Previous law firms, they're like, they won't let me speak to an attorney, and they hate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big thing. Is just having a face and a person you can contact. Yeah.
Do you like being a lawyer more, or do you like being a business owner more?
I like being a lawyer more. This lawyer stuff is fun. I like it. The business side is the side that's been the hardest part for me.
Is learning that stuff.
Yeah, I had no background in this. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I think this year has probably been the first year, the last 6 months, where I've actually felt like really comfortable in that role. It's been a really big learning curve, but yeah, definitely doing the law stuff is I like that way more than, running bills and making sure payrolls run and making sure the phones are still connected and, everything like that, buying insurance. So that's what kills me.
And so how, like, what did you do to learn the business side? Like, how did you learn to do that?
You make mistakes.
Yeah. You just went all on the fly. You're learning as you go.
Make mistakes. Yeah. I mean, we shelled out a lot of money early on and then we just kind of started, narrowing down things we don't need, see where we could cut fat, just trial and error. I mean, that was really the biggest thing, especially like figuring out office systems and just kind of how to run the office. That was so much trial and error and we still don't have it perfected yet, but it's a whole lot better than it was 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's always evolving, right? As you go along, you find better ways to do things.
Yeah, just try to be as efficient as possible, which, I was like, we're not there yet, but we're a whole lot closer.
And what do you like best about being a lawyer?
I really like talking to people. I'm an extrovert, so I get to meet a lot of really cool people, a lot of really neat people. You get a lot of people's stories, and I mean, especially on the criminal side of things, it's a lot of just wheeling and dealing, making deals, talking to the DAs, talking to the officers. So really, just meeting people is probably my favorite thing. That and obviously the feeling you get when you get the right result, the best result for your client, that feels great. But mainly just be and not being in the office all the time because I do litigation. I'm always at the courthouse, so I'm not just sitting behind a desk all day. I'm out and about. I'm moving around, so I like that.
How often are you in court?
Every day.
Really?
every day. Today I wasn't. Today was the first time. Well, I mean, last week was judges conference, so there just wasn't court. But besides that, I mean, I'm there in some form or fashion every single day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm rarely in the office.
All right. And so what advice would you have to a law student that is looking at their, job prospects and they're like, I don't want to work at, this firm or that firm. I want to do my own thing. And like you, they have no experience, running a business, and they're like, I want to give it a shot. What would you tell them?
First I would tell them, and this is something that was, driven into our heads all throughout law school. And probably one of the reasons I really love Elon, because all the professors always stressed, get the happy job, not the high paying job. Because the burnout rate in this profession is so high, right? So I would say, don't shy away from the small 1 or 2 attorney law firm that's looking to maybe pick up their first associate. Don't be afraid to do something you never would have thought to do. And get a mentor. I would say, find a mentor, through whether it's an internship, whether if it's you just call an attorney's office and ask them questions. Just try to meet people and figure out what all the options are before you pick them. Don't limit yourself, because you could open up, you can hang your own shingle. You could go into a small firm. You can go into a big firm. You could work for a nonprofit. You could work for the PD's office, the district attorney's office. And there's so many things you could do. So just really try to talk to as many people as you can to find out what all the options are. That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. It's funny because I'll meet people and they'll be like, my husband's a lawyer and he hates it. And it's like, well, he's only worked for an insurance company for 30 years. So maybe that's why he hates it, not actually practicing law.
Yeah, he doesn't like being a lawyer. He hates practicing that type of law in that environment.
Exactly. So I think that's great advice for people. Do you have a mentor?
Yeah, I do. And I told this gentleman that I kind of looked at him as such. He was, he owns his own firm. It's just him. He's on all the appointed lists. He was a district attorney for a while. Met him in Randolph County. We have a lot of time during, when we have juvenile court, we're in our parent defender capacity, kind of just sitting in a room waiting for your case to be called. And so I got to talking to him, and he's been super helpful. Always will sit down and chat with me. We play golf and we spend time together. We get lunch. Him and one of the judges over there has since day one, like, hey, you want to go get lunch today? And so I would say between the two of that, really, I'd say the whole Randolph County bar. I kind of look at all of them as my
mentor.
Yeah, because everyone, people don't believe me, when I tell them, but I mean, for real, everyone is so helpful, because they don't have that mindset where they look at you as competition. It's, you represent our local bar. We want you to do the best job. So everybody, but I would say those 2 people I mentioned in particular stick out in my mind, but everybody's helped me out in some form.
So do you reach out to other attorneys like, hey, can you give me a hand with this? Or, hey, what would you do about that? Or, are you just calling them up, cold calling them, asking them questions?
Yes. I mean, because most of the attorneys in the Randolph County bar are on at least one of the appointed lists. And so they're always around the courthouse. So you can always find someone sitting in the lawyer's room waiting for their case to get called, I got this case. Would you mind chatting with me about it for a couple minutes? And not one person has ever told me no.
Gotcha.
Just picking people's brains, man. That's a big thing.
So I know some young attorneys that are like super reluctant to reach out to somebody, and they're like, oh, that person doesn't want to waste their time with me, blah, blah, blah. What would you have to say about that?
Worst they're going to say is no, right? The answer's always no if you never ask. So
is it your experience that anybody has ever told you no?
Not one time. I've never had an attorney who I've said, hey, I know you practice in this area, or, I've got this issue I've not had before. Have you run into this, or would you mind talking? Not one time. And it's not just in Randolph County. The other counties I've been into, if I've asked people, not one time has anyone told me no. People who don't even know me, just they'll be like, yeah, I'll chat with you for a minute.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. This is a phenomenal area to practice law in, and coming from New Jersey, now I'm in Randolph County, North Carolina. It's like, how did I get here? But I feel so fortunate and so happy that however it happened, I ended up here and ended up in that courthouse with those people. It has just been an absolute blessing.
No, that's great. Sounds like you really found what you want to do.
I think so for now anyway, right?
Yeah. I got one last question. It's the most difficult one.
Okay.
Would you rather live in a grandfather clock or have candy cane legs?
I'm taking the candy cane legs all day, man. I'm taking the candy.
Then I can keep it, folks. What's that?
I said, because then I can keep practicing law. It's going to be kind of hard.
Yeah, you can't practice law from a grandfather clock.
I mean, I suppose you can in this day and age if you can do things remotely.
As long as you got to do Zoom.
Yeah, you got to be able to move around. No, I'll take the candy cane legs all day.
All right, Nick. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me today. This was really fun.
Absolutely, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
Take care,
man.
bud.
It's been a pleasure. We'll see you, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bronx Attorney Broadcast. Please like, review, and subscribe so we can help the channel continue to grow. And if you're interested in connecting with any of the guests, please let me know, and I'd be happy to make the introduction.